سلام. شما بیننده گفتگوی اختصاصی با جوزف بلاتز، سخنگوی ISAF در افغانستان هستید. Thank you, Mr. Blotz, for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
To start from negotiating with Taliban, what is the view of NATO regarding talks with Taliban?
Let me say, first of all, that the Afghan peace and reconciliation and reintegration efforts are an Afghan-led program. President Karzai, in his inauguration speech in November last year, put out two main efforts for his second term, and one is peace and reconciliation and reintegration. So it's an Afghan plan, it's an Afghan project, and we have seen that the international community has provided a strong backup for this Afghan project during the London conference in January and again during the Kabul conference in July. And we think from a NATO ISAF point of view that it's absolutely worthwhile to support and to back these Afghan efforts, because it's very important not only to address the security issues with military instruments, we also need to reach out to insurgents, to former insurgents, in order to reintegrate them into the country and into the society. This is very important, and we think we can even see some good opportunities already occurring.
Yeah. What is the priority for NATO forces and ISAF forces in Afghanistan and the current problems for overcome? War against the terrorism or compromise?
Well, it's actually both things. We believe that the best way to convince the insurgency that they are on the wrong side is to put pressure on them. And putting pressure on the insurgency, on Taliban, on Haqqani people, for example, is a matter of military instruments by conventional forces and special forces, but it is also a question of putting pressure on them politically. And as long as insurgents do not lay down their weapon, as long as they do not renounce violence, and as long as they do not abide to the Afghan constitution, we need to keep up this pressure. But at the same time, there is a generous offer to the insurgency to get back to the society and participate in the design of the future Afghanistan. So it's not a contradiction. It is both sides we have to follow.
Yeah, you said also about the compromise or conflict with Taliban and other groups that exist in Afghanistan. So it will be logical that we, in one part, we conflict with Taliban, and the other part, we negotiate with the Taliban. It will be.
Yes, you see, it's very clear for all of us, I think, that the insurgency is actually embodying the enemy of Afghanistan. They need to stop the insurgency. They need to stop violence. They need to adhere to the Afghan constitution. And in order to push them this way, we still need the military instrument. We still need to put pressure on them. But at the same time, there is a generous offer.
So from the viewpoint of view, this pressure that you said about on Taliban, it was workable after 9 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I can tell you that.
In which parts?
I can tell you that we are seeing a lot of opportunities coming up, particularly on the reintegration side. In many areas, for example, in western but also in southern Afghanistan, we do see Taliban people volunteering for the reintegration program. So it's obviously working. They understand more and more that they are on the wrong side. We are convincing them by putting military pressure on them, but also by offering them opportunities. For example, in their villages, the Afghan local police, for example, has been stood up only a couple of weeks ago in order to create opportunities, in order to improve quality of life.
Yeah, but one point I want to say that the pressure on Taliban, it was not workable. As you know that the Mullah Omar Al-Aras Taliban's groups said about the war against the foreign force in Afghanistan nowadays.
Well, what we have to see very clearly is the fact that for a series of years we didn't have enough forces to actually, exert or produce this pressure on the insurgency. Now, with the reinforcements coming in the country, we have got 98,000 American troops only, plus the buildup of the Afghan National Security Forces. They, together have almost 300,000 soldiers and policemen right now in Afghanistan. We do have the force posture. We do have the density of forces to actually address the security issues, to exert this pressure on the insurgency. And what comes to it is, as I said, efforts in the area of development and governance efforts in terms of reconciliation and reintegration. And we also have to see the regional context, addressing security issues on the common border with Pakistan.
Yeah. In which part this pressure it was workable, especially in the leadership of Taliban or the someone's that fight against its forces in Afghanistan?
Well, we are addressing, in terms of support for the Afghan government, the reconciliation issue, which is focusing on senior leadership, but also reintegration issues and efforts, focusing on low and medium rank leaders, but also on rank and file Taliban fighters. So we are addressing them both, and we can see that it's actually working.
Yeah. As Mr. Petrius yesterday said about the coming of one of the leader of Taliban in Kabul, and also for compromise with the Afghan government. So from the viewpoint of you, which level it was?
To be frank, I don't know. ISAF is not participating in peace talks. We are supporting politically and, if you wish, also psychologically, the Afghan-led program for reconciliation and reintegration. And it's absolutely up to the Afghan government and also to the High Peace Council that has just been formed 2 or 3 weeks ago to decide on whom to speak to decide, when to speak and under which conditions and where those talks should happen and take place. This is not up to ISAF. For us, it's very clear, like in every security issues and matters, that we are in a supporting role. And we have expressed that at various occasions.
Yeah. If the Taliban leaders, especially that come for negotiating with the Afghan government, so there's not any kind of problem for ISAF forces or NATO forces in Afghanistan?
Well, since we are backing the Afghan government in these efforts, there is no problem for us, the international community, to include ISAF, have expressed very clearly and repeatedly our unconditional support for these issues. It's very important not to see always the military instrument only. We need to go for reconciliation and reintegration also.
Yeah, isn't that they are in the blacklist of the UN?
I don't know. And you need to talk to the spokesperson of the Afghan government.
Yeah, some Afghan experts say that the NATO will fight for increase of troops to Afghanistan. So in this case, back up the negotiating with the Taliban. From the viewpoint of view, what do you think about this?
Now, this is completely wrong. We managed to get in tens of thousands of additional troops into the country, particularly American, and this is actually supporting mainly our point of main effort in southern Afghanistan, in the provinces of Helmand and Kandahar, but also in eastern and in northern Afghanistan. So we are getting in the reinforcements. At the same time, we are very successful in building up the Afghan National Security Forces. They are actually ahead of the schedule. They are building up very rapidly, and we can also see considerable improvements in terms of quality. So there is, this is, I would say, a success story, and we have now got the density.
About the stability of the Afghan government, national forces or national, you say. But Afghan experts say that it was not workable.
No.
And the Afghan forces cannot lead the war in Afghanistan.
Yeah. Let me tell you, we have got right now exactly the density of forces necessary not only to clear areas, but also to hold areas. And from a partnership and coordination and cooperation point of view, I think we are exactly on the right path. What we can see on a daily basis, right now in the districts of Arghandab and Panjwai, close to Kandahar city, is that the Afghan National Security Forces actually outnumber ISAF troops in those clearing and hold operations in, as I said, Arghandab and Panjwai. So we are jointly preparing operations, we are conducting operations jointly, and we also do joint lessons learned and after-action activities. And this is leading to a huge improvement in terms of quality. So it's working well, particularly in those areas where we are in heavy combats. And also, just to give you another example, it is working very well in the area of special forces.
Yeah. What do you think about the role of Pakistan, especially for negotiating with Taliban and also war against terrorism, from the viewpoint of NATO?
Yeah. As I said, the regional context is very important. We cannot address the security and other issues in Afghanistan without regarding Pakistan's role. This is very clearly.
So how was after 9 years the role of Pakistan?
Yeah, Pakistan is very important in addressing all these issues in this country. What I can tell you from the military side is that Pakistan, for a number of years now, I think 3 to 4 years, is employing a huge number of forces along the border in the 7 federal administered tribal areas between Bajaur and southern Waziristan.
Yeah, but it is workable?
They are employing 120, 130,000 troops. They are sustaining heavy losses. I think they even sustain losses that are more significant than the losses of ISAF and the Afghan National Army. Now, what you have to see is that the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan is a 2,500 kilometer long border. It's a very porous border. It's very hard to actually make it waterproof or seal it. So what we need in order to address the common enemy to both Afghanistan and Pakistan is a good coordination. And we have come up with a lot of mechanisms and procedures to provide actually the necessary coordination. And that's going on very well.
One of the questions that exists in the brains of all of Afghans about the war against terrorism is the Pakistan rule. As you know, that one of the governors of the NATO said about the existence of the leader of Al-Qaeda, Bin Laden, and him and Zawahiri in Pakistan, in the northwest of Pakistan. So what was the reaction of the NATO about this matter?
Very easy. I do not confirm this. And what you have seen or what you have listened to is just the opinion of an individual, and this is not an ISAF position.
Yeah, as you know that some experts, especially the WikiLeaks, said about the backup of ISAF from the Taliban and also existence of some leaders of the Taliban. People in Afghanistan want to know that it will be workable, that the war against terrorism will be going on the valleys of Afghanistan.
I can assure the people of Afghanistan that, including the Afghan authorities, there are mechanisms in place, such as the tripartite commission, working, very efficiently. I'd like to put it this way: very efficiently, in the area of coordinating all efforts in the area of security, but also, particularly border issues of all sorts. We have installed, by the way, border coordination centers. Comprising authorities, liaison officers, personnel from Pakistan, Afghanistan, and ISAF. So we do what we can in order to address these issues, which represent a common threat to all players and stakeholders.
Yeah, as you know that some of the fighters of the Taliban escaped from the border of Afghanistan to Pakistan. What was the action of the NATO up to now?
I'm not sure what are you actually referring to.
As you know that the blockade of the border from Pakistan said that the NATO forces or the American forces that the escape of the fighters of the Taliban, that they're bombing in Pakistan.
Well, what we have seen is a number of incidents where actually a couple of helicopters crossed the border to Pakistan in order to self-defend themselves. This was very important, and is absolutely within the context of the rules of engagement. So we haven't done anything wrong. The reaction to this does not, or did not, should I say now, did not affect us at all in terms of logistics, supplies, or whatsoever. We were completely self-sustained, and by the way, the border never was closed. What we have seen was the closure of one of the border crossing points, which was Torkham Gate, actually. And just this one. So what we have lost because of this closure was less than 1% of all the logistics and supplies we really needed. So it had no significant impact, and at no point in time it had an impact on our operations.
Yeah. We talk about the operation of Kandahar. Yeah. How do you evaluate this operation?
Well, what we're seeing in Kandahar is a process that is, first of all, approved and endorsed by President Karzai and the Afghan government. President Karzai went to Kandahar twice. First time, I think, in March or April, and he has been there only 2 weeks ago with General Petraeus in order to get reports on what's going on. So it's much more than military. It's a civil-military approach to the overall problems we are seeing in Kandahar province. Right now, what we're seeing on the military side is a series of clearing operations where, as I said, the number of the Afghan National Security Forces is even bigger than the number of ISAF troops. We are very successful in clearing districts like Arghandab, where we have already, taken over to 80–85% this entire district. This is actually the same spot where President Karzai went last week.
One of the questions that exists in the brain of Afghans about the war against the terrorism, said about when you back up the negotiating with the Taliban. So why you do not stop the war against the Taliban in Kandahar.
Let's come back to what I've said a couple of minutes ago. It's important to do two things. Very determinedly putting pressure on our enemies, and at the same time offering them the opportunity to think, to rethink what they are doing, and to join us again. And there is, as I said, no contradiction. We need to follow
but as
close
you know,
lanes.
the Afghan government, especially Hamid Karzai, said that we must not pressure on the Taliban in this time that we talk with peace.
Well, I haven't seen this quote. This is new to me. I can assure you that in coordination between the Afghan government and ISAF, we are absolutely clear in our position that it is necessary to keep up the pressure, which is not only a military one, but also a political one.
Yeah. How is the view of NATO or ISAF about the north of Afghanistan, especially that the insecurity is going to increase?
Well, let me say first that northern Afghanistan is a place that I'm very familiar with, because I used to be Commander Regional Command North 3 years ago. So I've seen the entire region between Faryab and Badakhshan. I'm very familiar with the entire situation there. What we're seeing right now is a deteriorating security situation in 2 or 3 particular locations, which is, parts of the provinces of Kunduz and Badakhshan, and also, if you wish, in Faryab a little bit.
Yeah, also in Balkh province. As
well,
you know, that
the
the Balkh governor said about.
The security in Balkh is relatively well, and Mohammed Atanur, the provincial governor of Balkh, is a very experienced man, providing stability and security in this
But
this
Atta
province.
Mohammed Noor said that the
And you cannot compare it.
non-coordination with the ISAF forces and the National Army of Afghanistan is caused that the insecurity is going increase in north of Afghanistan.
I do not agree at all with this quote. If he ever has said that, I don't understand why he said that. What we're seeing actually between the proud Shaheen Corps, the 209th Corps in Camp Span, close to Mazar Sharif, and ourselves, is that it is working very well. And we've got reinforcements into the provinces of Balkh and Kunduz and Baghlan, also for doing the necessary training for police and army. So we have actually regained the momentum, not only in particular parts of Kandahar, but also in Kunduz and Baghlan.
Yeah, thank you. پس از میان برنامه کوتاه گفتگوی ویژه‌ایمان را با جوزف بلاتز سخنگوی آیساف در افغانستان دنبال کنید. باز هم خوش آمدید. شما بیننده گفتگوی اختصاصی جوزف بلاتز سخنگوی آیساف در افغانستان هستید. We want to talk more about the north insecurity. What's the factors that the insecurity is going increase in the north of Afghanistan from the viewpoint of NATO?
Well, right now I would say we do see a deterioration of the security situation, but this is perhaps also, somehow due to the fact that we have got a lot of additional reinforcements in northern Afghanistan, and this leads to more confrontation. We are challenging insurgency in areas where they have not been challenged for many years. So this leads to more violence. It leads to an upturn of violence, but this is obviously necessary in order to improve the overall situation over time. And I'm pretty confident that it is possible with the force density we have achieved and the Afghan National Security Forces being built up in quality and quantity to adequately address the security issues there. And we do see progress also by the very strong, the very strong special forces operations, particularly in Kunduz and Baghlan.
Yeah, one of the factors that you said about the insecurity of north of Afghanistan, about the escape of Taliban from the south of Afghanistan to north. So why before the operation of Marja and also operation of Kandahar, you didn't give readiness for blockade of way to escape of Taliban to north of Afghanistan?
Well, the reason for that is that we didn't have enough forces in the country. And this is exactly the reason for getting all the reinforcements, particularly by the United States. In some of the areas, for example, in Panjwai or Jaray, we didn't even know that there are still strongholds of the insurgency. Now, having more sensors, having more troops available that can go in and find out what's wrong in these areas, we now learn better what really the situation is, and then we immediately go after these issues and not only clear the areas, but also we are able now to hold the areas, which is very important for development and better governance.
Yeah. As you know that the government of Afghanistan said about the transition of the security lead to Afghan forces up to 2014. So from the viewpoint of view, it is possible?
Yeah, it's absolutely possible. We are working on it, and the idea to do so is an idea President Karzai publicized last year. It was President Karzai actually who said, within 5 years we need to be able and capable to provide security. We are working very hard on that. We are building up the security forces. We are training them. We are following this partnering principle. We are getting in the necessary money for a good equipment, and we do have still more than 4 years. So we are pretty confident that over those 4 years, it is really possible to build the Afghan authorities and Afghan forces up.
Yeah, but after 9 years, it was workable.
And at the same time, we can then, gradually decrease the number of our forces.
Yeah, but I want to know, after 9 years, it was workable that for transition of the security for the Afghan forces?
I would say so. Look, for example, ISAF, until the year 2006, was only concentrating on the wider area of Kabul. Only in the second half of 2006, we expanded ISAF over the entire country, and also started to build up the Afghan National Security Forces in 2007 or so. So we didn't use the first 3 to 4 years, actually, for what we are actually doing right now, because it is absolutely necessary. So we lost some time at the beginning of the conflict, that's right, and we shouldn't have lost this time. But now we are very decidedly on the right path, and I think it's absolutely possible by the end of 2014 to reach this point.
Yeah, and also about the exit of the foreign forces from Afghanistan, especially that the Italian government said declared that in 2011 for exit of forces from Afghanistan, and also, as you know, that another forces exit from Afghanistan. So what will be the effect of these exit from Afghanistan to the war against terrorism from the viewpoint of view?
The first thing I'd like to mention is that it is very, very important to see that we need to achieve certain conditions first. So we will not simply, starting in summer 2011, for example, will not simply hand off the responsibility for security to the Afghan side. We need to achieve certain conditions, and the most important condition is the build-up of the Afghan National Security Forces. So our withdrawal, our gradual withdrawal, which is not an exit strategy, our gradual withdrawal is a function of the build-up of the Afghan National Security Forces. We have to meet this condition first. Nobody must worry that we simply walk off the room, switch the light off and slam the door behind us. This is not going to happen. We are going to very responsibly build up the forces necessary, and also look for certain improvement and progress in the area of governance and development. And following these criteria, we then gradually, over the next years, will thin out our forces, district by district and province by province. And then even beyond 2014, there will still be a strategic partnership. Perhaps more with a monitoring and training force and less a combat force, like it is the case right now. But the Afghan population can really trust us. We will not leave them on their own over the next 4 years.
Yeah. One of the spicy news nowadays about the secret prisons in Afghanistan. So what do you think about this matter?
Very easy. There are no secret prisons.
Yeah, but as you know that the President Karzai said about the commission for think about this matter from the viewpoint of view.
Yeah, I can understand that because of the allegations, because of rumors, President Karzai feels responsible to do something, and that's okay. But I can assure you, and General Petraeus has assured President Karzai, that there are no secret prisons. We have got one detention facility in Parwan, actually, which is a detention facility jointly run by the US and the Afghan authorities. The detention facility in Parwan will even be taken over by the Afghans completely starting in 2011. And I can tell you that even ministers and high-ranking officials of the Afghan government had been brought to the detention facility in Parwan, and they had been shown what's going on. So this is a very public, a very transparent thing. And even the International Committee of the Red Cross has been there on various occasions. I went to the DFIP, we call it DFIP, the detention facility in Parwan. I've been there only 3 weeks ago. And by coincidence, I met a commission of the International Commission of the Red Cross. So it's completely according to laws. It's completely according to principles of humanity. it's transparent,
But you wanna-
and there is no secret prison in the country.
You want to reject the open society declared that the existence of secret prisons in Afghanistan? They said about they have evidence about this matter.
This is not true. I only can repeat what I've just said. There is no secret prison. We have got this detention facility in Parwan, and on a temporary basis, we have so-called screening sites all over the country. I think this is a couple of screening sites we need in order to find out whether a person that had been detained in combat is really an insurgent or not. And only 25% of those people having been made subject to these screening sites go to the detention facility. So 3/4 of everybody detained in combat, for example, is being released on very short notice again. So all these allegations, let me say that one more time, are, from my point of view, absolutely unsubstantiated.
Yeah. About the private security companies that exist in Afghanistan, how do you evaluate the action of Afghan government that nowadays give up against these companies?
I think the Afghan government is absolutely right in trying to dissolve the private security companies. ISAF is completely supporting and backing this plan, and ISAF has been expressing concerns over private security companies for years because they are concerned to security. The only authority in a country that is allowed to use weapons and provide security is the state, is the government, is the police, and the army.
As you know that Hamid Karzai said about this, some companies will be going on from their work. What is your view about this matter?
Well, it's important to see now that it is really important to dissolve the security companies, the private security companies. But we need to take into account the order of magnitude and the particularities of this issue, because if you perhaps too quickly dissolve all the security companies of a private nature, you endanger certain areas that have to be covered from a security point of view, as long as you do not have enough army and police, because somebody has to take over this task. In other words, ISAF is supporting the Afghan approach of, in a first step, dissolving all the illegal companies, which is absolutely necessary. And the first illegal companies have been dissolved already last week.
But as you know from the first declaration of Hamid Karzai said about the dissolve of all these companies.
Yeah, and in a second step, they need to go after the so-called convoy escorts. This is the second step then. And in a third step, it's necessary to discuss the issue of fixed site protection companies, which is also, of course, one of the concerns. But right now, from an implementation point of view, I think in coordination also with ISAF, the Afghan government, the Afghan Ministry of Interior, has found a good way to address this issue, actually taking into account the specific interdependencies between, army and police still having been built up, and the security companies and the role of ISAF.
Yeah. One of the matters that you said yesterday about the lack financial of the Taliban to war against the foreign force in Afghanistan, which evidence do you have that the Taliban do not have more money for fight against the foreign forces?
That they do not have more manning?
Yeah. Lack financial that you said about the Taliban.
What I can tell you is that particularly by the operations of special forces, we were able over the last 12 to 15 months to take out of the fight a huge number of low and mid-level rank insurgent leaders and commanders, and thousands of rank and file insurgents. And this has had a huge impact on the efficiency of the insurgency. We have degraded their capability to inflict casualties on us. We have taken away tons and again tons of explosives, necessary to make IEDs, improvised explosive devices.
Yeah. But you said about
and this has got a great effect so far.
Yeah, you said about the lack of the economical that they have the Taliban to fight against the Afghan government.
Exactly.
What is your evidence about this matter?
Well, we are depriving the insurgency of revenues from narcotics because we also, when we find these things, opium, for example.
Yeah, but as you know that those provinces that Taliban fights against the foreign force and Afghan government, the opium is going and the
Well, there's
increase.
opium all over the place. Opium and narcotics, narco trafficking is a huge concern all
So
over.
in which parts cause it that the Taliban economical problems going increase?
Well, if you take away, say, homemade explosives and narcotics and opium and all this stuff in a certain area, this leads to the degradation of their capability, not only in this particular place where you find and destroy it, but in other areas as well. We need to go after fighters, we need to go after leaders, we need to go after their funding and revenue, and we need to put pressure on them in all sorts. But also, at the same time, we need to offer them a better way to participate in the design of a better and peaceful future in Afghanistan. So, and if you take that all together in a comprehensive approach, in a civil, military comprehensive approach, I can assure you that we are actually on the right path. You can see that in Helmand as well as in Kandahar.
For the last question, from the viewpoint of you as a spokesperson of the ISAF, how do you evaluate the after 9 years war against the terrorism in Afghanistan, the strategy of war in Afghanistan?
Yes, there is a strategy. We call it the COIN strategy. It's the counterinsurgency strategy in place since 2009. And General McChrystal and now General Petraeus are the fathers, the authors of this strategy, which is working well. The years before were difficult because of various reasons. We didn't have the force posture, we didn't have enough troops and resources, but now we do have the inputs right in terms of the right structures, the right personalities, the right resources, and also the right concepts. Talking about concepts, I mean the civil military approach and the counterinsurgency strategy. And I think this is absolutely the right way to start in 2011 the phase of transition towards the Afghan authorities that have to be ready to take over the responsibility for security.
Yeah, the main point in this year that the war against the terrorism after 9 years in Afghanistan is going the right way from the viewpoint of you?
I would say yes. We lost some time. I would say 6, 7, 8 years ago, we didn't have the inputs right, we didn't have the right concepts, and particularly we didn't have the right resources.
So what caused it
But
that
now
you
we
lost
have
the time? This is the question.
Well, I've been here as the ISAF spokesperson for 6 months, and I do not have enough background to answer that question. I'm not sure what really has happened 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm responsible for what's going on right now. And I'm happy to answer your questions on the near future.
Thank you, Mr. Blotz.
تشکر.
شما بیننده گفتگوی اختصاصی جوزف بلاتز سخنگوی آیساف در افغانستان بودید. تا دیدار دیگر، خدا نگهدار.